Hello. Today you will be learning about models of curriculum development and how they can be implemented into the classroom setting. So before we begin discussing the curriculum models specifically, let's talk about the question of why using curriculum models is helpful. So these curriculum models are derived from a number of theories. They can assist curriculum developers to conceptualize the development process by pinpointing certain principles and procedures. Models are to be used as guidelines which can result in greater efficiency and productivity. The models that will be discussed in the following slides are often used by educators and curriculum developers, which allows those who are not experienced in the process to understand what is typically done. So overall, the models serve as guidelines for those who are creating curriculum to kind of make it a more universal approach where most people are kind of doing the same thing and it kind of helps them understand the best method of curriculum development. So the models that will be presented during this presentation are all linear, which means that they use a certain order or a sequence of progression. Now, of those sequences, there are two different ones that will be shown during this presentation. The first is deductive. In deductive, models begin with general ideas and create specified curriculum materials. Basically, you start with your objectives and you assess the needs of the community and the students. You start with your objectives and then you create your materials. Contrastingly, we have inductive, where the models begin with curriculum materials to develop general ideas. So in inductive sequences, the curriculum materials will begin the process, will be taught to students, and then the general ideas of the objectives or the needs of the students will be assessed. Also, all of these are prescriptive, which means that they serve as suggestions as to what should be done. Like I said previously, these serve as guidelines to kind of help those who aren't familiar with the process of curriculum development so that you can kind of understand the best method to use while you develop curriculum. So the first thing we're going to talk about is Dewey's theory. Dewey's theory emphasizes the active role of the student. Dewey thought that students should express personal interest in what they are being taught. Student choice should be emphasized, and curriculum should be created that is personal to the students. Dewey also believed in developing the adult mind by providing students with instructional strategies that develop long-lasting effects in both the thoughts and behaviors of the student. Essentially, Dewey's main objective while he was thinking of his educational theory was that we should be projecting to make an impact on these students' lives until they become adults. We should strive to work toward their adult mind and the development of that. And then finally, fluency. Curriculum developers should understand that both curriculum and the mind of the student are not fixed, which means that no matter what, there is always going to be the potential of change in both curriculum and the student, and that none of these things should be looked at as hard and fixed. And then finally, curriculum should be democratic. It should involve the voice of multiple people, and it should be reflective as we assess the positive impact or negative impact that curriculum has on students. So some modern interpretations of Dewey. First would be personalization. Curriculum should be created to create real-world connections between content and the student. Backwards design can be something that would be positively implemented in this theory. You would create your essential questions. As they move through the lesson, they would keep those essential questions in mind, which would promote long-term understanding of concepts. One of the things that Dewey really talked about or really cared about was retention of material, and that kind of moves toward that idea of the adult mind and making sure that our impact on students is long-lasting. And then finally, for personalization, kinesthetic learning techniques should be used to stimulate and facilitate engagement. Students should be moving around the classroom rather than just sitting in a desk for the long period of time that they're in school and writing things down. Dewey believed that kinesthetic learning and moving throughout the room and creating a physical connection with content was very important. Second, we have real-world connection. Dewey believed in teaching through occupational skills to promote engagement and foster skills to be used in the workforce. Again, that idea of the adult mind and developing the adult mind comes to light here. He also believed that internships should be available to students. Obviously, this goes toward the older group of students, but he believed that internships and moving out into the workforce and as much real-world connection as you can have would be great. And then finally, he believed in inviting guest speakers from various backgrounds to share their experiences. So not only are students working through internships, or they can be working through internships, but they're also hearing from the experiences of people who might be in the field that they might be interested in joining in as well. To continue with the modern interpretations of Dewey, the next thing is common intellectual mission. Basically, what this means is equity in education, providing students all with the same opportunity to be successful in their education. Human curriculum should be built on diversity and the common good. The common good refers to the fact that everybody should have a chance, and the sum of the whole would be something that would be really good for everybody. And then finally, use the same curriculum for all students with differentiation. This is something that I personally have experience with. In my school, we provide differentiation for all students, and we provide the same curriculum. This is something that is a difficult task to implement, but when it is implemented correctly, it really goes a long way, as students get to learn the same thing as their peers in a different way that suits their specific needs. And then finally, teacher as designer. So Dewey believed that teachers should get to know the child by implementing their experiences into instruction. So doing things like asking reflective questions about their past, or just general ideas of like, how do you feel about this? Have you ever had experience with this? He also believed in avoiding traditional textbooks and worksheets, which to me, I find interesting because I have never been a teacher who gives textbooks and worksheets. So I kind of agree with him on that. And then finally, project-based learning is something that would be really good with and go along with the theory, with Dewey's theory, because it provides kinesthetic opportunities. It also provides students opportunity to work in groups, which provides them with a chance to work with others, experience what interacting in the workforce would be like. And then finally, working with others sometimes comes with complications. So it could also give them an opportunity to deal with problem and solution. So the Tyler model is a deductive model. As a reminder, a deductive model is one that begins with the general objectives and then moves toward the more specified content. So Tyler believed that 3 sources should be used to determine curriculum objectives. First, the student should be a source. The specific needs of the student should be determined through observation by teachers, interviews with students, interviews with parents, questionnaires, and tests as techniques for collecting data about students. And then society as a source. The needs of society to develop objectives should be collected by dividing life into various aspects, such as health, family, recreation, vocation, religion, consumption, and civic roles. And then finally, subject matter. After gaining an understanding of the needs of students and society, the disciplines themselves should be analyzed and screened to prevent contradictory objectives. So in other words, after you have measured the student needs and then measured the needs of the society around the students, you should also revisit the subject matter so that if there's any objectives that are included in the subject matter that don't necessarily match up with the needs of the student and society, those should be omitted. So to talk about the modern interpretations of Tyler, I actually included these 2 graphics. With the ever-changing field of education, some propose small changes to be made to the framework of Tyler's curriculum development model. While the main focus of the framework remains intact, which would be the learning objectives, learning experience, and learning assessment, the proposal asks to add components of student and instructor preparation and universal usability. With the increased focus on digital learning and the use of technology, We're now faced with the issue of unfamiliarity in terms of how to use certain resources that are being implemented. Because of this, some believe that Tyler's model reigns true, but measures to ensure guidance and instruction for new materials is necessary. This is especially true in the area of materials, as some might be asked to provide digital learning materials that could be new to students or instructors. The Oliva model is another deductive model that is in some ways similar to the Tyler method, but but provide a lot more components than the Tyler method does. So the Oliva model includes 12 components. It includes a plan for curriculum development and instructional guidelines. The feedback lines cycle back from evaluation to curriculum goals. This model promotes reflective development of curriculum. If you notice, after number 12 in this model, it goes back to curriculum goals. That serves as a method for you to be reflective in your practice. After you have gone through all of the steps and you get to the end, it is almost as if this is a never-ending system that continuously asks you to reevaluate and question your own practices. So like I just said, the best thing about the modern interpretation of the Oliva model is that it allows for reflective practice. It asks you to build and test curriculum continuously. And one thing that you can do within the classroom to make sure that you're using this model correctly is to continuously assess student work and instructional effectiveness through assessments, surveys, and questionnaires. Also, with the Oliva model, you can break it down and use it for either guiding your curriculum or guiding your instructional practices, or you can use it for both. So the TABA model is the third and final model, and it is inductive. As a reminder, the inductive model starts with specified content and then moves toward the more general objectives. So the TABA model should be designed by teachers rather than handed down by higher authority. The TABA model begins with creating specific units of instruction for students. It includes a 5-step sequence. Introduce and implement new units, determine structure, revise and merge, practice experimental units, and create units for each grade level or subject area. The modern interpretations of TABA. TABA treated intergroup relations as part of a larger educational program, one that enhanced the autonomy, dignity, intelligence, and equity of each individual. Basically, TABA really thought that working in groups and working with each other would be something that would be really good for them. The focus is on student-led discussion and development of critical intelligence through free thinking. Some things that you can use are Socratic seminars and debates. Give students the opportunity to think through problems and offer a variety of solutions. Current event discussion. Something that I have used in my classroom are current event discussions. I think that current event discussion is something that can have students connect with the real world, but also at the same time try to solve problems. The problems that they see around them, a lot of kids I've noticed have very creative solutions to problems, some of which may not be possible, or some of which actually are really good and effective ideas. Also, as talked about before, having students work in group settings and have group debates makes it so that they continuously may deal with issues within their own student relations, which could make it also good for them to problem solve in that way as well.